$2.03. That's what they're paying for a liter of gas in Newfoundland right now. Not premium, regular. In Montreal, stations crossed the $2 mark this week. Vancouver's been there since mid-March, and if you're anywhere else in Canada, you're probably not far behind. In the last 30 days, gas prices have jumped 47 cents a liter. That's not a typo, 47 cents in 1 month. And here's what nobody in Ottawa wants to say out loud. There's very little Canada can do to stop it. Because this isn't about Canadian policy. This isn't about the carbon tax or provincial regulations. This is about a war in the Middle East that's blocking 1/5 of the world's oil supply. The question isn't why prices are going up. The question is how high they're going to go, and how long this lasts. If you drive a car in Canada, you need to understand what's happening. Subscribe and hit the bell. Because this situation is changing fast. Let me show you what's actually driving this. February 28th, 2026. The United States and Israel launched strikes on Iran. The war has now been going for 5 weeks. And almost immediately, Iran did what everyone feared they would do. They shut down the Strait of Hormuz. If you're not familiar with the geography, here's what matters. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow choke point in the Persian Gulf. Every day, about 20% of the world's oil passes through that strait. 1/5 of global supply. Iran controls one side of it. When Iran threatened to attack any oil tanker allied with the US or Israel that tried to pass through, shipping companies pulled back. The strait is effectively closed. That's created one of the largest supply shortages in global energy market history. Now, you might be thinking, Canada produces its own oil. We're not dependent on the Middle East. And you'd be partly right. Canada only imports about 11% of its oil from the Middle East. But here's the thing about oil prices. They're set on a global market. When supply drops anywhere in the world, prices rise everywhere. Canadian oil doesn't exist in a bubble. Our refineries compete with buyers from Europe, Asia, everywhere. When global supply tightens, we pay more too. Warren Mabee, director of the Institute for Energy and Environmental Policy at Queen's University, put it simply, Canada and the coastal regions of Canada are having now to compete with oil and refined products like gasoline and diesel that can easily be shipped away from Canada. That's why the coasts are getting hit hardest. Newfoundland at 203 cents a liter, BC at over 200 cents, Montreal crossing the threshold. These are markets that are directly competing for supply on the global stage. And the inland areas, they're not immune. They're just a few weeks behind. Let me walk you through how this hit Canadian families. On March 3rd, gas was averaging $1.34 a liter nationally. That was the lowest point this year. Then the strike started. By mid-March, Vancouver was already over $2. The strait closure was rippling through global markets. Crude oil jumped to over $100 a barrel. Levels we hadn't seen consistently since 2022. This week, the national average hit $1.78. But that's just the average. The real pain is on the coasts. In Portugal, Cove St. Philip's, Newfoundland, Dawn Sharp runs a gas station called Sharp's North Atlantic. She told CBC what it's been like since prices crossed $2. People are just getting frightened, I guess, is a good word for it. Frightened. That's what $2 gas does to a family that's already stretched thin. Think about what this means in real dollars. The average Canadian drives about 15,000 kilometers a year. If your car gets 10 liters per 100 kilometers, that's 1,500 liters of gas annually. At $1.34 a liter, that's about $2,000 a year. At $2 a liter, it's $3,000. That's $1,000 more, just for getting to work and back. And it's not just gas. When fuel prices spike, everything gets more expensive. Groceries, shipping, heating oil for homes that use it. The ripple effect touches everyone. Now on Wednesday night, Trump gave a primetime address. He said the core strategic objectives in Iran are near completion and the war will end soon. He promised that once it ends, the Strait of Hormuz will open naturally and prices will come down. But here's what he didn't mention. There's been significant damage to critical energy infrastructure in the Gulf during this war. Refineries, pipelines, loading terminals. Even if the shooting stops tomorrow, that infrastructure takes time to repair. Supply doesn't snap back overnight. Experts are saying even in a best case scenario, immediate ceasefire, strait reopens, no further escalation, it would take weeks or months for supply to normalize and prices to fall. and nobody knows when the war will actually end. Trump said 2 or 3 weeks for continued strikes. But that's what he said last week too. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is calling for a federal gas tax holiday. He wants the government to suspend the fuel excise tax, the clean fuel standard surcharges, and the GST on gas and diesel for the rest of the year. He says it would save about 25 cents a liter, roughly $20 per fill-up. So what can Canada actually do? Let me be honest with you, the options are limited. This is a global supply shock caused by a war that Canada didn't start and can't end. Prime Minister Carney was asked about gas tax relief on Tuesday. His answer was careful. We're following it closely, and in the context of fiscal realities, other measures we've taken to improve affordability, the persistence of the potential oil price, we have to take all of that into account. That's not a yes, but it's not a no either. It's the answer of someone who knows the situation might get worse before it gets better. Here's the reality. Several other countries have already moved on gas tax relief. Australia, Spain, Ireland, Portugal, Italy. They've either reduced or temporarily eliminated fuel taxes to cushion the blow for consumers. Canada could do the same. Poilievre's proposal would cost about $5.25 billion in the lost tax revenue through the end of the year. That's real money. But it's also real relief. $1,200 for a family of 4, by his math. The question Carney has to answer is whether this spike is temporary or structural. If the war ends in a few weeks and prices normalize, a tax holiday might not be necessary. If this drags on for months, the pressure to act will only grow. And there's something else to watch. The shift to electric vehicles. Data is starting to show that high gas prices are driving more Canadians to look at EVs. When you're paying $100 to fill your tank, suddenly that electric car doesn't seem so expensive anymore. That's a silver lining, I suppose. But it doesn't help the family in Newfoundland paying $2.03 right now with no way to switch vehicles overnight. The bottom line is this. Canadian drivers are paying for a war they didn't choose, fought by countries that didn't ask our permission. And until that war ends, there's no quick fix. If this helped you understand what's really driving gas prices, hit the like button. Share this with someone who's feeling the pain at the pump. They deserve to know why. Here's what to watch in the coming weeks. First, the war. Any sign of ceasefire talks, any indication that the Strait of Hormuz might reopen, and you'll see oil prices respond almost immediately. Markets are watching every statement from Washington, Tehran, and Tel Aviv. Second, the federal government. If prices stay above $2 for another few weeks, the political pressure for tax relief will intensify. Watch for signals from Finance Minister Champagne or Carney himself. Third, provincial responses. Ontario and BC could move independently on provincial fuel taxes. Doug Ford has been quiet on this so far, but that could change if prices keep climbing. The situation is fluid, it changes week by week, sometimes day by day. That's why I'll keep covering this as it develops. My question for you, has the price at the pump changed how you drive, where you go, or what you buy? I want to hear from real Canadians living this. Tell me in the comments. Look, I wish I had better news. I wish I could tell you prices are coming down next week, but the truth is, nobody knows how long this war lasts. Nobody knows how much damage has been done to global energy infrastructure. And nobody knows what comes next. What I do know is this. Canada is an energy-producing country. We have resources. We have options. How we respond to this crisis and what we build afterward, that's what matters for the long term. If you want to understand how Carney has been positioning Canada for exactly this kind of global instability, the video on his trade diversification strategy is right here. It's the bigger picture that makes all of this make sense. I'll see you there.